Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience.
Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube if you're following us on there or watching from the YouTube. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe, become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. I tell you what, it does feel good waking up this morning as a New South Welshman after the big win last night over the Maroons on your Thursday morning. I tell you what, it does feel bloody good. Late one last night, as you can tell by the voice, and obviously freezing, as you can tell by the attire as well. But we get up and we get into it. Obviously, we got to review what was a pretty sensational game from New South Wales. We'll talk about Queensland as well, where it went wrong for them. There definitely is a lot to touch on here. First of all, I think the most important thing to touch on here is Mitch Moses. Obviously, came in after, all of the dramas around him last year. A lot of people talking, saying that he hasn't performed well in Origin before. He has played in Origin with a broken back and he's done pretty well. I don't think he's ever really had a bad performance in State of Origin. I mean, Game 3 last year won us that game, himself and Cody Walker. So, he's never really had a bad game in Origin, but a lot of pressure on him coming in, obviously, with Cleary out. Hines obviously getting dropped, comes in for game 2 in a must-win game, and he gets the job done. Kicking game was outstanding. Obviously, his ball playing as well. That try for Liam Martin where he stepped back on the inside through that gap. The gap was so big he could almost run through it himself, but he really caught the eye of his back rower and Jaden Sewer. And then obviously threw that beautiful ball, stepping back on the inside to Liam Martin. It was really beautiful stuff. New South Wales, they were having a lot of luck down that right-hand side. But a lot of luck also came from the left. I feel like both backline players, Lomax and To'o, Latrell and Stephen Crichton, they were having a lot of luck on their edges, and they really owned their edges too. It was like New South Wales just dominated all over the park, whether it be on the left or the right. New South Wales, they were on top. Lomax owned the air there on that right-hand side, going up against Murray Taulagi, and then obviously Latrell Mitchell and Brian To'o. They owned that left. And Valentine Holmes, we called it. He had a rough night. Defensively, a pretty rough night for Valentine Holmes. Latrell Mitchell was running amok down that left-hand side. But it wasn't even just Latrell Mitchell. It was also Angus Crichton. I think defensively, Angus Crichton was one of the better players on the field as well. So made some massive tackles and some try-saving tackles as well on Valentine Holmes, who was trying to get the ball out that way and create something on that that right-hand side for Queensland, I should say. Angus Crichton, Latrell Mitchell, their defence was outstanding. We talked a little bit in obviously the preview about Latrell Mitchell and his defensive IQ, but I thought that Angus Crichton, his defence was probably the better defence of the night. On that edge there. Payne Haas as well through the middle, 33 tackles, I think it was, with a 0 miss. I mean, just all across the park, New South Wales were completely dominant, and it goes back to the forwards, but it also goes back to the control of Mitch Moses. Again, Nicho Hynes in game 1, we talked about, obviously, him not being able to direct the side around with the boot. His last tackle options weren't the best, and obviously he was pretty much taking all of the pressure that New South Wales had put on off with some certain poor choices with his kicks and giving the Queenslanders a lot of good ball. Obviously, they were pretty much making 20 to 30 metres per kick return too in that previous game. So, obviously having that long kicking game and just having a bit of structure to sets, even the unstructured plays looked crisp. They looked like they were, there was a plan there. The boys knew who to get the ball to in those certain situations where it was looking a little bit loose. It was looking a little bit unstructured and untidy. They just knew where to get the ball. It just looked crisp. The whole time, you couldn't say that New South Wales were unstructured because even in the unstructured moments, it just looked crisp. Even in, I think it was the 60th or the 65th minute, where they were just chucking the ball around left, right, and center. Then they got the ball back to Mitch Moses. He was roaming down that left-hand side, put a kick in. Just those little moments like that. So good. And again, it goes back to Mitch Moses and his performance. His long kicking game, his short kicking game, Jerome Luai, all those kicks, all those little grubbers. Every time he kicked the ball on that left-hand side and pinned it through, he always had a great chase from Angus Crichton, Latrell Mitchell, Brian To'o, who usually got a few, obviously, set restarts as well. And forced goal line dropouts as well. Whenever Luai dudded the foot in, his short kicking game was outstanding. And as I said, the kick chase from Angus Crichton, Latrell Mitchell, Brian Toto, it was even better. So, we're sort of repeating ourselves a little bit here, but it is just the kick pressure, the kick chase from the boys, but also just being dominant on both edges of the field. It was a real masterclass to watch. So big performance from Moses, big performance from Luai. Payne Haas, we just touched on the 33 tackles and 0 miss. Absolutely outstanding. Obviously played big minutes too. I think he played around 49 to 53 minutes or something like that. Played ginormous minutes through the middle of the park and, played a fair chunk of that first half as well. Looked really, really solid. Obviously, whenever he ran the ball, he was making a few post-contact meters, and you sort of didn't notice it watching the game the first time. But when you go back and actually watch the game, he was an absolute wrecking ball. He ran for 130 meters in his first stint, which was about 30 minutes. 130 meters in 30 minutes is absolutely outstanding. And it just goes to show how big of a game he had. I think he ended the game with nearly 200 meters. So, big performance from Payne Haas through the middle there. An absolute legend. And obviously really stamped his authority down. I feel like over the past few Origins, we've been waiting for Payne Haas to have that big game. This was it. He was absolutely outstanding himself. Angus Crichton, who we spoke about, obviously his defense, but also his running game. Particularly in the first few sets of the game when New South Wales were warming into it, the first few sets that New South Wales had, it was usually about 2 or 3 backs running the ball into Angus Crichton, into kick. That was the set plan. It took a few sets for New South Wales front rowers to actually start running the football, on those first few tackles. But yeah, look, I mean, Angus Crichton really put his hand up every single time, whether it be off a penalty, whether it be just in general play, coming in, having a run. He was absolutely outstanding and a big performance for him. I think that if Mitch Moses didn't get man of the match, it'd be a pretty much 2-horse tied race between Latrell Mitchell and Angus Crichton because they were both outstanding on that left-hand side. And look, Latrell Mitchell, he didn't have to do much, but he just did what he needed to do in this game, obviously, with the flick pass to Brian Toto, a few other big moments as well defensively, putting on some big hits. He was absolutely outstanding. And every time he ran the ball too, he was making a ton of post-contact meters. I do wish at the start of the game he would have got involved in those first few sets, had a few more runs, because he would have just been so damaging. But then again, you don't need the troll to get involved all the time. And that's the thing that, at South Sydney, people talk about his lack of involvement out there at fullback. He doesn't need to get involved all the time. Latrell Mitchell, he's so good because he gets involved in the big moments. He owns the big moments, and he always gets the big moments right. Very rarely do you see Latrell Mitchell get the big moments wrong, and he got all of the big moments right in this Origin game. Look, even myself, I was sort of doubting whether he'd get picked for game 2. I was sort of thinking, is Bradman Best going to get the job here? Is Matt Burton going to go into left centre? Are they going to do something else? Are they going to keep Critter there and bring in Jesse Ramian onto the right side? What are they going to do here for game 2? Obviously, then seeing Latrell Mitchell sitting with Madge Maguire at the Rabbitohs reunion, it was pretty obvious that was the plan to bring him in. And I can't believe I doubted bringing Latrell Mitchell in. I doubted it, and I paid the price. Latrell Mitchell was outstanding. And again, his defensive IQ, his attack, he was running the ball, setting up his outside men. He was outstanding on a bunch of cylinders, and a really, really inspiring performance from Latrell Mitchell. Brian Toto as well. He was unstoppable every time he ran the ball, breaking plenty of tackles, and then obviously defensively as well, forcing a few goal line dropouts as well with his kick chase. I thought that he was outstanding. Lomax, we spoke about him already, just in the air, being an absolute threat and really owning that edge over Murray Taulagi. Obviously, Murray Taulagi put a big shot on that right-hand side for New South Wales a few times, but then obviously we came back that way, and Murray Taulagi tried to put another shot on Stephen Crichton. He literally just had to step on his outside. One simple step, Murray Taulagi went flying, and then they had the space on the outside to set up Lomax for his second. It was just really smart football from New South Wales. Again, limited errors. They were completing majority of their sets, New South Wales, and when they didn't, off the back of an incomplete set, they would own the fucking defense and they would dominate through the middle. It got to the point in the 65th to 70th minute where off the kickoff, Queensland wouldn't even run the ball through the middle. They were just trying to shove the ball onto the left-hand side and create. And obviously they had a lot of success on the left-hand side in game one because we had the less man there. And we said it. Critter obviously getting the combinations right on the right-hand side, having a full time to train on that right-hand side too with Zach Lomax, with Liam Martin, and get those defensive combinations right. He would be an absolute weapon there. And it sort of took him a while to warm into it defensively. There were a few lapses there in defense from Critter, but, for the most part, he was outstanding defending there on that right-hand side, had some really big defensive plays, and really shored up that right-hand side, and they couldn't get any momentum for Queensland on that left-hand side. They were struggling to get momentum there. Hammer was guarded quite well. He did have some big moments, Hammer, and obviously scored a try on that side as well. But other than that, I thought they guarded Hammer really well. I thought they guarded Xavier Coates really well. And the defense on that right-hand side for New South Wales was pretty decent throughout the entire game. Obviously, a few lapses here and there, but I thought it was pretty solid. And obviously, with Critter having a full another 2 weeks to train with Lomax, to train with Martin, and get those defensive combinations right, I think that they are going to be even better going into game 3. New South Wales pretty much kept Queensland under the pump for the full 80 minutes, really. After about 10 minutes, New South Wales were the dominant team, hands down. Obviously, Queensland, they won the second half technically, but you can't tell me that New South Wales weren't the better team for both halves of football. New South Wales were owning Queensland and through the middle. They were struggling to get momentum. Queensland, they had to force the ball out wide just to get a little bit of momentum. You can't tell me that New South Wales weren't the better team in the second half, just like they were in the first. The first half was perfect. A few lapses in the second half, obviously letting in a few Queensland tries, but obviously that comes with fatigue as well. New South Wales were the better team for the whole game, and I think that it is pretty hard to argue otherwise. Payne Haas through the middle, but it wasn't even that. I mean, Cam Murray's first stint was absolutely phenomenal. Running through the middle, getting quick play the balls, the leg speed there. He was outstanding. We got Connor Watson's role completely wrong. He only came on in the last 10, 15 minutes and played a dummy half role, did it quite well. And the game really didn't need him to do anything else. I think if New South Wales were under the pump, he would have come on a little bit earlier, just through the middle, getting a few bit of leg speed. You would have seen himself and Cam Murray through the middle together, generating leg speed, getting quick play the balls and stuff like that. But we were so dominant for the majority of the game that we didn't need him through the middle, Connor Watson. It was just, obviously, in the last few minutes there, just chuck him on, give Robson a rest in that dummy half role. And they called it on Blurk in a bar that he was going to get some hooker time. I personally didn't think he was going to go into hooker. I thought Robson was going to play the full 80 again. But, it was good to see Robson get a rest. It was good to see Watson on the field for his debut. And I thought he did quite well as well. Solid defense. Obviously came up and put some pretty decent hits on, just putting some pressure on Queensland through the middle. And then obviously getting quick play the balls and looking good. His service was great. Couldn't really fault Connor Watson either when he came on. So I imagine he'll keep his spot for game 2. And again, the thing is with Watson is if anyone gets injured from 1 right down to 13, he can come on in pretty much any position and do a job for you. So, I think that he is guaranteed to get a spot in game 3. I think this side probably won't change going into game 3 either for New South Wales. They did a really, really solid job. Attacking wise, defensively, putting on pressure. New South Wales were absolutely outstanding. And a guy that not many people are mentioning, because obviously Payne Haas, Latrell Mitchell, Mitch Moses, these sort of guys stood out the most. But I thought that Spencer Leniu off the bench, again, was absolutely outstanding. There was a run in the 50th minute where he broke the line and ran 20 meters. His intensity when he runs the ball and just the leg speed he generates. He's not the biggest or tallest, I should say, front rower that you've ever seen. But he's just so mobile. Got great leg speed. He always got a quick play the ball, or majority of the time got quick play the balls. He was great. Spencer Leniu yet again. I thought Olakawatu when he came on, he just knew his role, whether it be in the middle or the edge. He had some tough runs, some big hits. Especially there was one big hit. I'm trying to think on who it was. It might have been on Tom Dearden or someone else. But yeah, it's a massive hit to Molly Olakawatu when he came on. Speaking of big hits as well, Moses. We talked about his defense in this game as well. 23 tackles. But the big ones were the 2 tackles on Tom Dearden where he forced turnovers twice. Far out. Again, Moses, unbelievable performance there, defensive-wise and attack. Some real big moments in the game that swung the momentum towards New South Wales. Let's touch on Queensland now. I could talk about New South Wales all day. It was some great performances all around on the park there for New South Wales. The main standout, obviously, being Moses with his kicking game. Luai, I thought, with his short kicking game as well. Latrell and Angus Crichton on the left-hand side. Toto as well. Thought was great. Lomax in the air. He's earned his origin spot now, and he keeps it, I think, for me. I cannot see Lomax losing his origin spot. There on the right wing, Liam Martin, Homolio Kawatu, Spencer Leniu, some big attacking and defensive moments for those guys. Cam Murray, particularly his first stint with the quick play the balls. You just had some great performances all around, all across the park there for New South Wales. I don't think this side changes 1-17 at all. Even guys like Terrell May, these sort of guys will probably have to miss out. Mitch Barnett, these sort of guys will miss out. I think it's a great opportunity too, going into Game 3. I mean, unless there's an injury and they have to bring someone else into the squad, I think you do bring Terrell May, Isaiah Katoa, these sort of guys into the squad. Luke Keary, we haven't needed him, knock on wood, we haven't needed him yet. Obviously he's a servant of the game, obviously very close to Madge Maguire, been coached under Madge Maguire at Clubland before. But I think that it is in Game 3 a good opportunity to bring Isaiah Katoa, Terrell May into the side. And look, we haven't won the series yet. Maybe you do keep the entire squad the same, but I think it would be a good idea to bring these sort of guys in and get them origin experience regardless. Again, I think that either, Isaiah Katoa or Terrell May would be great backup if there was injury. It is a lot to put on a 20-year-old's shoulders to bring him in if a Moses or a Jerome Luai goes down, but I think he would do a job, and I think he's got the maturity where, he'd probably do a decent job there as well. But look, again, I'm just saying bringing them into the squad. If there's no injuries, I'd probably consider bringing them into the squad or getting them a bit of origin experience in the squad. Let's touch on Queensland. I thought that, we sort of spoke about it already, and we've touched on a lot for Queensland already, just talking about New South Wales' performance. But, New South Wales were the better team for majority of the game. Queensland, they struggled to get momentum through the middle after 10 minutes. I thought that it was a pretty quiet game again for Ruben Cotter. Thought that he didn't have the best performance again. I think in Game 1 and Game 2, we haven't really seen the best from him. He struggled to get momentum through the middle. We talk about the smaller, more mobile middle forwards and how that's changed the game, and these sort of guys really having an impact on games. We saw that for New South Wales. For Queensland, these guys were getting dominated by some really strong defence. Ruben Cotter was struggling to get momentum through the middle. I thought Mo Fodawaker's set was a lot better than what it was in Game 1. I thought he had a really much better stint in Game 2 than he did in Game 1, but still, their forwards were struggling to get any momentum and go forward through the middle of the park. Struggling, absolutely struggling. I thought that as well, Collins, I thought that it probably wasn't his best performance either. Had some pretty decent runs and tried to make some big defensive plays, but I just don't think it was his best performance, and I think that he could do a lot better for Queensland. But again, Queensland were just on the front foot, attacking wise and defense the whole game. It was pretty much impossible or near impossible for Queensland to get any momentum, particularly in that first half where it was pretty much near perfect from New South Wales. Queensland were really struggling momentum wise. I thought that DCE as well, after the first half, I think he was rattled just by how dominant New South Wales were. And, he just couldn't get his side any go forward. He was completely starstruck. And you could even see in post-game interviews with him, struggling to get words out. I think that he was very surprised with the output from New South Wales, but also the fact that he just couldn't get momentum, whether he was going through the middle, whether he was trying to spread to his edges, nothing was working. And that's the first time I've ever seen DCE rattled, dead set rattled. I've never seen him rattled before like I saw him rattled in that game. It was just purely off the back of what New South Wales were putting down and what was happening through the middle of the park. Tom Dearden as well. Obviously, those 2 tackles from Mitch Moses, forcing errors from him. Did have a little bit of success going down the left at some stages, obviously setting up that hammer try as well. But Yeah, look, I mean, it could have been a little bit better from him. Val Holmes was owned on that right side by Latrell Mitchell and Brian Toto and Angus Crichton, defending him very well. And obviously trying to come up and put some defensive plays on. Had one or two big hits here and there, but other than that, was really struggling to get any attacking prowess. Valentine Holmes, and look, as I said, we said it 100 times already, but so was the rest of the side as well. Look, positives for Queensland. They won the second half. Despite being on the back foot for pretty much the full game, they did win the second half. They scored 18 points to 4 in that second half. So, DCE even said it himself. I think the one thing to take away is the second half, the fact that we did win that second half. And, going into a game 3 in Suncorp, I'm sure that will be the message. Going into camp as well, they did win the second half. And if they, play a lot better and if they handle what New South Wales is throwing down a little bit better, they could go on to win the series. But, look, I mean, if New South Wales play like they did in game 1, I think it is going to be very, very hard for them not to win in game 3. Sorry, if they play like they did in game 2, I should say, not game 1. If we play like we did in game 1, we're going to get fucking hammered. But if we play like we did in game 2, going into game 3, I think that it's going to be very hard for us not to win the series. Again, knock on wood, because, we don't know what Queensland's going to throw out. In terms of changes for Queensland going into game 3, look, I mean, I'd probably have to say that Valentine Holmes drops out. And look, big call, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't change. But I think that if Selwyn Cobbo is available, you chuck him at left centre and right centre, wherever you want to put him. He has played on the right wing before, Selwyn Cobbo, so he has experience on that right-hand side, and I'm sure he'll handle himself well. But I do think that Selwyn Cobbo comes back in if he's fit, ready to go, and I think Valentine Holmes drops out. I think that Dane Gagai is a real possibility as well, depending on how Hammer's going to go with his shoulder injury. If there is an injury there, we could be seeing a very different centre pairing of maybe a Selwyn Cobbo and a Dane Gagai. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of other changes here, I think that you have to bring in Dave Fafita. The Kurt Capewell interchange, it just didn't work. Obviously, they exploited him when he was on the field defending at centre, and then going into the back row, just got no go forward in any of his runs. I didn't really look his best. Still, obviously, after coming back from that injury, and it's sort of what we predicted for him. And look, I wouldn't have been surprised if Kurt Capewell had come out and done a really good job for Queensland, because he's done it in the past, but he's just not at his best right now. He's gotten older. His body has aged heaps in terms of his ability. He doesn't have the same mobility as he did, in those past series. So I think that Kurt Capewell's got to come out. I think Dave Fafita has to come in. If there is an agenda around Dave Fafita, and if Billy Slater still has a problem with Dave Fafita and how he's playing, I think that you got to bring in a guy like a Beau Fermor or a guy like a Kurt Mann. We talked about Kurt Mann even before game 1 as a possibility to get into this Queensland side. I think Kurt Mann is definitely a shout. Beau Fermor, they touched on Bloke in the Bar as well, I think is a great shout. And obviously Blaze from BKR Sports, and discussions from him at the start of the year. We were previewing the year for the Gold Coast Titans. I said that Beau Fermor, he definitely has the chance to get back into those conversations. Jermaine Hopgood, depending on his fitness, might come back into the side as well. Just looking at their forward rotation, I'd probably have Ruben Cotter coming off the bench. I'd start Lindsay Collins. Depending on how Corey Jensen plays, I'd probably bring him in. I'd either bring him in or Christian Welsh. I think Welsh has been in some pretty decent, underrated form at the moment, and I think that Christian Welsh would probably do a job there in the starting front row with Collins. I'd probably start those two. I'd have still Paddy Carrigan at 13. I'd still have the same back row of Sua and Nanai. My bench would probably be Harry Grant, Dave Fafita, Felice Kafusi, and either a Kurt Mann, a Beau Fermor, or one of these sort of guys. That's probably who I would have in this Queensland side. Mo Fotuaika drops out for me. I just don't think he's provided enough in games 1 and 2. Ruben Cotter, either on the bench. I think that he, drops out potentially. I don't think that. I think it'd be a pretty big call to drop Ruben Cotter, but I just haven't seen enough from him in games 1 and 2. And I feel like they just need some bigger boppers, some big mobile guys, because the small mobile guys, it just isn't working for Queensland because they're getting dominated through the middle. They need some big boppers in there. They need some guys that can break the game open through the middle of the park. And Dave Fifita's a guy you can bring on, play for 20 to 30 minutes, and he'll break the game open for you through the middle as well. So I think Dave Fifita is definitely a shout here to get a spot. In terms of other changes, I don't think there'll be too many here for Queensland. I think that the only changes will be in and around the forward pack and how that rotation works. But other than that, I don't see too many other changes there for Queensland. There you go. That's your review. There's not too much to say about Queensland. They struggled with go forward through the middle. DCE, it's the first time I've seen him rattled in a while. Reece Walsh didn't have much impact either. I was going for some low percentage plays a lot of the time, just trying to get his side the win. I love his persistence. I love that he loves the ball in his hands in the big moments, but they were just struggling across the park throughout the spine to get go forward. And unfortunately, New South Wales, they dominated for the full 80 minutes. Positives for Queensland, they can take the second half as a positive. They won 18-4. They can take that as a positive. As I said before, it's going to be the message going into Game 3 camp for sure for Queensland that they won that second half, and they're going to take a lot from that. But they'll definitely take a lot from the first half as well, where New South Wales were near perfect and, they were getting absolutely hammered. They're going to make changes, with that as well. And I think that Billy Slater, you've got to bring in Dave Fifita. If the lineup is the same going into Game 3, I think New South Wales win again. I just cannot see Queensland winning again with this same lineup. Especially with how they were dominated in the first half. And if New South Wales get that sort of lead in the first half going into Game 3, I think it's going to be a very similar storyline. And I think New South Wales, if they play like they did in this game, just with a little bit less fatigue in the latter end, I think that New South Wales win. I really do, and I think that we win the series. So, look, let's see how we go for Game 3, seeing if there's any changes. Let me know what changes you would make for both New South Wales and Queensland. For New South Wales, I'd be keeping it exactly the same 1-17, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. For Queensland, I can see a few changes happening in around the back line and the forward pack. But again, I want to know what you guys think as well. So leave your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the Big LEZ'S League YouTube, all the socials, Instagram, TikTok. They are in the description below. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. That's also in the description. We will see you guys in the next one.